They said she slipped, that the sea took her. One moment she was leaning against the rail of a luxury cruise liner, barefoot in the moonlight, and the next, gone. No body, no witnesses, no answers. 10 years later, a tourist uploads a casual photo from a remote island in the Philippines. It's not the photo that matters. It's what's in the corner. A woman, blurred but unmistakable, pale, wide-eyed, staring directly into the lens. The same face that haunted a sister's dreams for a decade. She was gone. Now she's looking back. And she's not supposed to be alive. The post hit the forum at 2:03 a.m. local time, titled, "Weird Pic from Palawan, Look in the Corner." It was buried under digital noise. Another tourist flexing paradise. A white sand beach. A swaying palm tree. But there, at the edge of the frame, barely more than a smudge, was a figure. Half-lit. Off focus. Staring straight at the camera with unsettling intensity. By morning, the thread had 300 comments. By afternoon, it was viral. Most chalked it up to a camera glitch or a local woman caught in the shot. But someone, username NeverLetGo19, saw more. This looks like Elise Sullivan, the girl who vanished from the Seraphine cruise 10 years ago. The replies exploded. Ava Sullivan didn't sleep much anymore. She scrolled out of habit, lurking forums, threads, even conspiracy boards. Most days were numb repetition, but that morning her phone buzzed with a saved Reddit alert. New comment on missing persons thread. Elise Sullivan. She didn't breathe as she opened it, just clicked and stared. The moment she saw the photo, the world shifted. It wasn't just resemblance, it was the scar. A faint, barely visible crescent below the jawline. Elise had gotten it from climbing the fence at their grandmother's house. She was 8. Ava dropped the phone. When she picked it back up, her hands were shaking. She enlarged the image, zoomed until it pixelated, then zoomed out. The woman was thin, wild-eyed, wearing something white, could have been a dress or a shift. Her hair looked brittle, but the eyes... Ava hadn't seen those eyes in 10 years, not in real life, only in dreams. But she'd know them anywhere. Her voice trembled as she whispered, "Elise." She opened a folder on her laptop titled Case Files. Thousands of clippings, photos, logs. She pasted the image inside, dated it, labeled it, photo number 1, possible sighting, Palawan, Philippines. And then she stood. She didn't cry, didn't scream, just stood very still, heart pounding like a drum. Because if Elise was alive, then everything they were told was a lie, and someone was going to pay. The Seraphine sliced through Caribbean waters under a silver moon, its upper decks glittering with laughter and champagne. Somewhere below, the casino buzzed, and lounge singers crooned through velvet microphones. But on Deck 9, the observation deck, it was quiet. Elise Sullivan, 19, barefoot, stood against the rail. She wore a cream dress, hair tangled from sea breeze, fingers clenched white around a cocktail glass she hadn't touched. Her eyes searched the black water below like it held a secret. Maybe it did. A surveillance camera, mounted just above the deck entrance, blinked its red eye. Later, authorities would say it was malfunctioning that night. Static. Corrupted footage. Just 2 blurry frames of Elise walking toward the railing. It was 11:43 p.m. 2 hours earlier she'd argued with someone. Ava would never learn who. A man, witnesses said. Tall, foreign accent. Elise was seen pushing him away near the bar, then storming out alone. By midnight, she was gone. The crew found her sandals by the railing the next morning. No broken glass, no signs of struggle. Just absence. A missing girl in open waters meant protocol, sirens, searchlights. A helicopter dispatched from the mainland. The Seraphine circled for hours. They called her name into the wind. But the sea is too deep, too silent. The final report read, "Presumed overboard. No evidence of foul play. Declared deceased in absentia after 14 months." Elise's parents accepted the ruling, a tragic accident, an impulsive fall, or maybe she jumped. It was easier than asking more questions. But Ava never believed it. Elise wasn't reckless, and she didn't jump. She remembered her sister's voice that night on the ship. Something had changed. Elise had whispered to her over dinner, "Don't trust the staff. Something's wrong here." They were words Ava clung to in the years that followed. A thread in a storm. Now, 10 years later, Ava opened the photo again, zoomed in one last time, and that same expression Elise wore on the deck, half warning, half plea, was back. Ava Sullivan hadn't set foot in a newsroom in 6 years, not since she was let go for emotional instability and inappropriate use of newsroom resources. In truth, she'd used the Tribune's research department to chase ghost leads on Elise, poured thousands of man-hours into maps, message boards, police records. Some called it grief. Her editor called it delusion. She didn't care. Now her one-bedroom apartment in Baltimore was a shrine to the missing. Every wall stacked in corkboard and string. Articles, cruise logs, handwritten interviews, photos, most too blurry to help. She called it her war room. No one else saw it. The day the photo surfaced, Ava hadn't slept. She was on hour 14 of cross-referencing a name she found in an old passenger manifest when the Reddit alert pinged. Since then, she hadn't eaten. Her desk was littered with half-drunk coffee, unopened mail, and a legal pad with one word scribbled in thick black marker, Palawan. She muttered it aloud again. The word felt sacred. A place. A point on the map. She dragged out her old travel case from the closet. Inside, a battered laptop, a satellite phone, a GoPro with dead batteries, and a thin file marked ES Theories, post-2017. She flipped through it like scripture. Sightings, rumors, a blurry clip from Thailand, a hoax in Fiji, a woman who swore Elise was alive in a compound in Java. All dead ends. Until now. Ava opened her laptop, created a new folder. Sighting, June 28, 2025, Palawan, confirmed. She dragged the tourist photo inside. Then she began her process, frame-by-frame contrast, facial feature analysis, overlay comparisons from Elise's old ID. Everything matched. But more than the data, it was instinct. Sisters know. She stared at the screen, voice hoarse. "You're alive." The words tasted like betrayal and hope all at once. She clicked into her old burner email, typed fast. 2. Redacted. Subject, possible Elise sighting. Text, need travel options to Palawan. Quiet. Cash, no delays. Urgent. She hit send, heart pounding. For 10 years, Ava had been screaming into the void. Now, the void finally screamed back. By the time Ava uploaded the image to the missing persons subreddit, the skeptics were already out in force. It's just wave foam. You're seeing what you want to see. Pareidolia. It's a psychological trick. That woman could be anyone. They always said that. Pareidolia. The brain's talent for finding faces in randomness. Clouds, wood grain, shadows on walls. It was the kind of word experts used when they wanted to sound sure of things they didn't understand. But Ava wasn't guessing. She opened 2 photos side by side on her monitor. One from the cruise 10 years ago, Elise at a deckside dinner, laughing mid-sentence, hair tied in a loose braid. The other, the recent image, faint, distant, distorted by salt haze and pixel compression. Still, Ava saw it clearly. The posture, shoulders slightly hunched, arms held tight to the body like someone always too cold. The hairline, the tilt of the head, and that scar. A crescent slash under the left jawline. No one else would notice it, But Ava had touched it 1,000 times as kids, pressing her thumb against it when Elise was sick, scared, or sad. She leaned forward, fingers grazing the screen. "That's you," she whispered. "I know that's you." She posted a breakdown thread, comparing overlays, highlighting anatomical points, asking for facial recognition help from anyone with access to image software. But most replies were brutal. "You need help. Let her go. You're making a spectacle of your grief." That one stung the most. She closed the browser. The apartment felt too quiet, like the breath had been pulled out of the walls. Ava stood and crossed to the mirror near her kitchen, looked at herself. Unkempt hair, shadows under her eyes, a haunted, hollowed face. They thought she was broken, obsessive, delusional. But she wasn't chasing ghosts. She was chasing a signal. And now, she'd found one. Ava turned back to her laptop, pulled up a map of the Philippines. Pareidolia be damned. She knew what she saw, and she knew who. The hallway to cabin 4014 was narrow and dim, muffled by thick carpet and expensive silence. Motion lights blinked on as Elise walked barefoot toward the door, arms crossed tight over her chest. She hated how quiet the ship felt at night. Too many shadows for somewhere meant to be paradise. Her keycard trembled in her hand. She looked over her shoulder again. Nothing. Just a long stretch of hallway, a distant echo of clinking glasses and laughter from the upper deck. But she felt it. Eyes. That prickling sensation between her shoulder blades, like someone waiting for her to turn around. She tapped the keycard against the lock. Red light. She tried again. Green this time. The door clicked open with a mechanical sigh. The room smelled like lavender oil and too much air conditioning. A towel lay crumpled on the floor, a brochure folded open on the bed. She hadn't turned the light on yet, but the moonlight through the balcony doors cast enough of a glow. She closed the door softly behind her. Then she heard it. A breath, sharp and not her own. She spun, heart slamming in her chest. Silence. But something was off. The bathroom door was ajar, just slightly. She stared at it, waiting, willing herself to move. "Elise," a voice called from behind the bathroom door. Male, smooth, almost gentle. "You weren't supposed to go to the deck tonight." Her throat closed. "Who's there?" A pause. Then a slow creak. A hand appeared first. Dark suit cuff, gold cufflink. The door opened farther. She didn't wait to see the face. Elise bolted, heart hammering against her ribs, yanking the cabin door open and sprinting barefoot down the corridor. She didn't look back. Later, investigators would report the door to cabin 4014 was ajar when staff did final rounds at 2 a.m. They found no signs of forced entry, just a room too tidy, a cruise itinerary torn in half, and a single heel by the sliding balcony door. The captain's house sat on the edge of a dying marina in Naples, Florida, paint peeling from the shutters, a wind chime made of rusted spoons dangling from the porch. Ava stood on the warped steps, her blouse clinging to her in the thick Florida heat, fingers trembling just slightly as she rang the bell. Captain Raymond Holt opened the door in silence. His white beard had yellowed with years and cigarettes. His posture, once a picture of seafaring discipline, had collapsed into a slow curve. He stared at her with rheumy eyes, like he'd been waiting for this moment a very long time. "I'm not giving another goddamn interview," he growled. "I'm not press," Ava said. "I'm her sister." That stopped him, just for a second. His eyes softened, then hardened again. "Thought that case was dead." It was, until 3 days ago. She held up the printout of the photo. He didn't take it, but he looked, and she saw it, just for a flicker, recognition. Then it vanished under years of practiced indifference. He opened the screen door. "Come in, but I'm not saying what you want to hear." Inside, the air smelled like scotch and old charts. Nautical maps lined the walls. A half-burned candle sat in front of a framed photo of the Seraphine. A shrine or a punishment? Ava couldn't tell. She wasn't suicidal, she said. You know that? She wasn't, he muttered. She was pissed. At who? He sat down, wincing. Tall guy, passenger, British accent. We clocked him on security tailing her around the dining deck 2 nights before she vanished. Did you question him? Of course we did. He was gone by the time the Coast Guard came aboard. Ava leaned forward. And you let that go? Holt's face darkened. You think I didn't push? Corporate buried the report. Passenger logs were wiped. His name was fake anyway. We knew it. They knew it. He looked at her, and this time the voice cracked. She was scared. And we failed her. Ava slid the photo across the table again. She's still out there. And this time, he didn't argue. They said their names were Brett and Colleen, married 22 years from somewhere outside of Austin. He wore linen shirts and always had a sunburn that made him look perpetually annoyed. She wore oversized sunglasses and perfume that clung like smoke. Their accents were real, but something about them wasn't. Elise met them on the second night of the cruise, by accident. She'd spilled half a mojito onto Colleen's sandal and apologized 3 times. Colleen had laughed, "Honey, I've ruined shoes in worse places." And just like that, they were inseparable. They sat next to her at dinner, invited her to the silent disco, even offered her a private snorkel tour they were personally arranging off a stop in Roatan. Elise thought it was sweet at first. They treated her like a niece, maybe even a daughter, but by day 4 it felt like surveillance. Brett always seemed to show up where she was. When she went to the spa, he was suddenly outside the steam room, reading. When she visited the ship's art gallery, Colleen stood beside her, saying, "I used to paint too, you know." Once, in the elevator, Elise caught Brett staring too long. Not with interest, with calculation. She told Ava about them during a late-night sister call in their shared cabin, whispered, "They know things about me I didn't tell them." Like what? Ava asked. Elise hesitated. They said they knew my mom was sick. But we haven't told anyone that. Ava laughed nervously, thinking it was paranoia. Maybe you mentioned it and forgot? Elise didn't laugh. She stared at the closed bathroom door like something might be listening. The next morning, Brett and Colleen were gone. Disembarked early, staff said. A family emergency in Belize. But their names were scrubbed from the onboard guest list within hours. Ava had tried to look them up years later. No photos, no real booking records, nothing but a first name on one dinner reservation stub Elise had written down in her journal. Brett and Colleen from Texas had never existed, and Elise had known, long before she vanished. The voice was syrupy smooth, practiced, and too casual for Ava's taste. You're listening to episode 6 of Vanished at Sea. Today, Elise Sullivan, the cruise ship ghost story that might not be a ghost story at all. Ava clenched her jaw and pressed play again anyway. She hated podcasts like this. Packaged tragedy, stylized sound design, ominous piano notes timed just right. But she couldn't ignore it. The Reddit photo had made waves, and now Elise's name was trending again. She sipped lukewarm coffee and listened as the host recapped everything Ava already knew. Elise's age, her last known movements, the official report, the inconsistencies, the usual Reddit rabbit holes. Then something new. But what's strange is that a former cruise staff member, who we'll call TJ for legal reasons, contacted the show 2 weeks ago. He worked on the Seraphine during the 2015 voyage and says he saw Elise the night she vanished, after the reported time she was last seen. Ava froze. The host continued, breezy and unaware of the adrenaline that just shot through her listener. He claims he passed her near the crew access stairwell around midnight, barefoot and crying. said she looked scared. When he asked if she was okay, she just kept walking. Ava slammed pause, rewound, played it again. TJ Crew access stairwell after she supposedly disappeared. Why hadn't this surfaced sooner? Why wasn't it in the official statements? The host clarified. We reached out to the cruise line for comment, and they denied the existence of this crew member. But records show someone named Terrence J. Murphy was employed that season before resigning suddenly mid-cruise. Ava's heart jumped. She scrambled to her files, pulled the crew list she'd obtained years ago. Terrence Murphy, deck maintenance. Last logged shift, April 7th. The night Elise vanished. She'd missed it. Or maybe she'd written him off like everyone else did. She grabbed her phone and opened a private message thread. To TJ Murphy, last active 6 days ago. Subject, I heard the podcast. I'm Elise's sister. I need to talk. She stared at the blinking cursor. If he responded, everything could change. If not, she was back to chasing ghosts. The file came in the middle of the night. No subject line, no message. Just a WeTransfer link sent to Ava's encrypted inbox, one she hadn't checked in weeks. She clicked it with a trembling hand. Hallway cam deck, 904-1215, final.move. The timestamp was unmistakable. April 12, 2015, 11:51 p.m., minutes after Elise was said to have vanished. Ava's breath caught as the clip loaded. The angle was fixed, grainy. A hallway deep in the staff quarters. Fluorescent lights flickered overhead. The faint hum of machinery. Distant laughter through bulkheads. Then, movement. Elise. She appeared from the left side of the frame, barefoot, hair damp like she'd been sweating or crying. Her steps were uneven. She kept glancing behind her, as if someone was following. Her white sundress was wrinkled, twisted at the hem like she'd been running. She paused beneath the camera, looked straight up, not directly into the lens, but just past it, like she sensed it watching. That moment, 3 seconds, burned into Ava's mind. Her sister's expression wasn't panic. It was resignation. And then, out of frame, just as Elise started to move again, there was a shadow, barely visible. A second figure stepping into the corridor behind her just as she disappeared around the corner. Ava paused the video, rewound, frame by frame. She saw it. The figure was wearing a dark suit, a glint of something on the wrist, maybe a watch. The face was never visible. The moment was too fast, too blurred, but whoever it was, they weren't crew, and they weren't just passing by. They were following her. And this footage? It wasn't in the official investigation file. It was wiped, buried, deleted. Ava stared at the screen, her chest tight, adrenaline buzzing in her hands. She played it again, again, again. Elise wasn't lost. She was being led somewhere, or hunted. Ava clicked Save As and dropped the file into 3 separate encrypted drives. She no longer doubted someone on that ship wanted Elise gone. But the real question was, who just leaked this footage? And why now? The plane ticket felt heavier than paper. Ava stared at it on her cracked phone screen. Manila to Palawan, one way, 7:45 a.m. departure. She hadn't told anyone. Not her father, not her former editor, not even the online thread of missing persons investigators who'd rallied around her post. This part she had to do alone. Because something in her gut said this was the window, and if she didn't step through it now, it would slam shut for another decade. Her suitcase was small, just the essentials. Camera, notes, passport, a USB with every file she'd gathered on Elise, and the photo. She printed it on thick paper, folded twice, worn from how many times she'd taken it out, stared, studied. The photo had been traced to a beach outside Taytay, near an old eco-resort built before the pandemic and half abandoned afterward. The tourist who snapped it hadn't stayed, just passed through on a day trip and posted it with a caption, "Haunting stretch of coast. No one around. Caught a weird shape in the foam." Ava booked the resort without hesitation. The travel agent warned her, "You know, Palawan's beautiful, but it's remote. Cell service is trash. You sure you want this place?" "I don't need a signal," she said. "I need silence." She didn't sleep the night before departure. Instead, she sat at her desk, watching the old video again. The one of Elise walking barefoot through that crew hallway, glancing over her shoulder. The grainy, flickering image of a girl pulled into something dark and unseen. "I'm coming," Ava whispered. She closed the laptop and zipped her bag. At the airport, she wore sunglasses and kept her hood up. Not for disguise, but because grief had a way of carving your face into something people stared at. As the plane took off, Ava didn't feel fear, only fire. This was no longer a story to unravel. It was a path she had to walk, to the place her sister vanished from the world. It wasn't on Google Maps. No satellite view, no coordinates. Just a jagged stretch of coastline where the trees ran right up to the sea and the sand curved like a hooked finger. The resort's name, Bahari Cove, appeared only once in any public listing. A 2016 travel blog riddled with broken image links and a single unsettling caption. "Strangest stay of my life." Place was empty, staff were silent, left a day early, still don't know why. Ava stood in the town of Tay Tay, with a printout of the photo in one hand, sweat trickling down her spine. The village buzzed with slow, heavy heat, roosters, children laughing, the hum of motorbikes. She showed the picture to everyone, street vendors, storekeepers, a man gutting fish with a machete. Each one shook their head. No resort there. That part of coast is jungle. Nothing built there now. Now that word stuck with her. She was about to give up for the day when an old fisherman, his skin like burnt leather, motioned for her to follow him behind a food stall. He didn't speak right away, just lit a cigarette and squinted at the photo. Then, "I know this beach." Ava leaned in, heartbeat suddenly sharp. "Where?" He tapped the lower edge of the image. "That rock, like a broken fin. You only see it from north side." "Is there a resort?" His eyes darkened. "Used to be." "When?" "Before the virus. Rich men came. Never locals. Always guarded. We brought supplies by boat. Never saw who stayed." "Is it still there?" The man hesitated. "Storms broke most of it. But some people say lights still show at night." Ava felt something twist inside her, something between fear and vindication. "Can you take me there?" He flicked his cigarette into the sand. "Not me, but I'll find someone who will." He handed back the photo, but not before one last glance at the sea. "Place isn't right," he muttered. "Sometimes it tries to forget it exists." She wakes before the bell rings. The dreams are always the same. Water closing overhead, her lungs screaming for air, voices just above the surface that never break through. Then the light, always too white, always too clean. She sits up slowly on the mat, joints aching. Her feet know the floor before her mind remembers her name. Not Elise, not anymore. She walks to the basin, splashes her face, watches her reflection blur in the water. Blonde hair, too long. A pale crescent scar under her jaw. Some mornings she forgets it's there. Others, it's all she can feel. The mirror above the basin is gone. Removed last year, or maybe last month. Time folds strangely here. The others call it Father's will. He says mirrors keep the old names alive. She wears the uniform. Loose cotton, always white. No zippers, no buttons, nothing sharp. Outside, the island hums with tropical rot. Palm fronds sway. A generator coughs in the distance. She hears the morning prayer being piped through the loudspeakers, Words she's learned to mouth but never believe. They call her Hope now. Father gave her that name. You were saved, he told her once, the first night she woke in the clinic with salt in her throat and a needle in her arm. The sea tried to claim you, but I pulled you back. You are mine now. You are new. She doesn't remember the ship, not fully. Just pieces. A white dress. A man's shadow. A scream swallowed by wind. She walks past the compound wall. Surveillance eyes blink in the canopy. Red dots hidden in birdhouses. Power cords trailing into dirt. She doesn't wave. No one does. In the garden, the other girls kneel beside her. Their names are Joy, Grace, Mercy. They never ask where they came from. That's part of the forgetting. That's how they survive. Hope, Elise, glances up at the sky, at the gulls circling low over the cliffs. Some part of her, buried deep under the training, still whispers, "My name is Elise Sullivan, and someone is looking for me." Ava sat on an overturned crate at the edge of the village, her notebook open, sweat streaking her back beneath her shirt. The fisherman's cousin, a wiry woman with silver hair and a cigarette clamped between her lips, stared out toward the horizon. "There's a man," she said finally. "Always comes before the weather turns. Storms chase him like he makes deals with the sky." Ava leaned forward. "What does he look like?" The woman's fingers moved to her temple. Tall, pale, never talks. Wears a straw hat like he's mocking the sun. Girls go with him. Young ones, foreign, pretty. Always quiet. A chill prickled down Ava's arms. "How long has this been happening?" The woman shrugged. "Years, maybe longer. He doesn't come through here, not anymore. Pays to be met by boat. Locals don't ask questions. That's how people stay alive." Ava flipped to a clean page. "What kind of boat?" The woman turned to her with narrowed eyes. "You ask a lot for someone walking into a place that wants to stay buried." "I'm looking for my sister." That softened her, slightly. The woman glanced around, then pulled a folded photo from a plastic pouch tucked in her belt. Grainy, old, black and white. A man in a faded button-down shirt, sunglasses, and the hat. It was wide-brimmed, straw, casual, ordinary, except Ava recognized the body language. Still, self-assured. The way men stand when they think no one is watching, and no one could stop them even if they were. "You know his name?" "No one here does," she said. "But we call him Alan." Ava frowned. "That means wave, right?" The woman nodded. "Because he comes and goes with the tide, like he's part of it." Ava stared at the water, heart pounding. Elise had once written in her journal, "A man watches me when I'm alone. He never speaks, just tips his hat like we're in on a joke I don't get." A man in a straw hat. The wave was real, and now it was pulling Ava in. She falls. Always the same dream. She's on the cruise ship deck, stars smeared across the sky, music in the distance, the taste of rum still on her lips. Her bare feet slap against wet wood as she runs, breath ragged, someone's voice behind her, low, coaxing, too calm. Then silence. The rail gives way beneath her hands. She falls into black. No splash. No impact. Just the crushing weight of water pressing against her lungs. The sound of her own scream muffled into nothing. Her body sinks, limbs heavy, hair streaming upward like seaweed. She opens her mouth underwater to scream again, and wakes, choking on air. The room is still dark. Outside, the jungle whispers. The sea growls softly against the rocks beyond the fence. She can hear the others breathing in their cots, shallow even, empty of dreams. Hope, Elise, sits up, slick with sweat. Her fingers tremble as she clutches the blanket, fists curled like she's still bracing for the fall. She's lived on this island for so long now, but the ocean still feels like a mouth waiting to reopen and swallow her whole. Father says the water took her old life, that it baptized her, made her clean. But the sea doesn't wash things away. It buries them. Sometimes, late at night, she walks down to the edge of the cliff and watches the surf break below. There are days it feels like the water is whispering, not threatening, but calling, familiar, a witness. She wonders if her body is still out there, floating in someone's case file, if they've declared her dead, if anyone still says her name aloud. She closes her eyes and touches the scar under her jaw, the only thing she remembers from the night she vanished. It isn't from the sea, it's from the man who pulled her back from it. He said he was saving her. But something was taken. Not just her memory. Something deeper. Something she's starting to feel again. A flicker of her real name. Elise. Ava sat on the floor of the hostel's narrow bathroom, knees hugged to her chest, the tile cool against her back. A single mosquito buzzed near the flickering bulb overhead. She hadn't eaten in 16 hours. Her last coffee sat untouched on the counter, gone cold long ago. She pressed record on her phone. Voice memo. 21, April 18th, 2:41 a.m. She stared at nothing, then spoke. I don't know why I'm still doing this. Elise, if you're out there, hell, if you're even real anymore, I need you to give me something, because right now, I feel insane. A deep breath. They all think I'm chasing a ghost. Maybe I am. Maybe I made all of this up. Maybe I need to believe in something because the alternative is admitting I let you vanish and never did a damn thing to stop it. Her voice cracked on the last word. She swallowed, closed her eyes. The photo, the podcast, the footage. It all felt so clear when I was thousands of miles away. But here, nothing makes sense. The locals clam up the second I say your name. The only person who agreed to take me to the cove bailed without explanation. He won't even return my texts. She turned off the faucet that had been dripping all night. The silence after the click felt deafening. I saw you in that video, Lisa. You were scared. I know that look. I remember it from when we were kids and you used to wake me up crying after nightmares. But this time, you never woke up. She curled tighter, forehead resting on her knee. I don't know what's waiting at that beach. I don't know if it's you, but I have to find out. She hit save and renamed the file. To Elise, in case I don't come back. Then she cried, quiet, hollow sobs that echoed off the tile and filled the empty room like ocean surf against stone. The woman found Ava at the pier just before sunrise. She didn't announce herself. Just appeared out of the mist like she'd stepped out of a forgotten part of the sea. Lean, dark-haired, early 40s maybe, weathered like someone who'd seen too much and didn't talk about it unless she had to. Ava was sipping instant coffee from a chipped mug, her duffel bag at her feet, waiting for the fisherman's cousin to arrive with the boat. The woman walked up and simply said, "You're not supposed to be here." Ava blinked. "Excuse me?" The woman glanced at the water. "You're looking for someone, a girl, blonde, vanished from a cruise ship 10 years ago." Every muscle in Ava's spine locked. "Who are you?" The woman pulled something from her wallet, a photo, faded, curled at the edges, a teenage boy with dimples and a shy grin standing on the deck of a ship, the Seraphine. "My son, Mateo, cabin crew. He disappeared 2 months before your sister, same ship." Ava reached for the photo, but the woman pulled it back. "I don't show this to people. Only the ones dumb enough to follow the trail this far. You think it's the same thing?" "I know it is." Her voice cracked just slightly. "They scrubbed his record, his social. Told me he'd gone AWOL, that he probably jumped. And you believe them?" The woman laughed bitterly. "I did, for about 5 minutes." They stood in silence as the first streaks of dawn sliced the sky open like old scars. Then the woman said softer, You won't find help out there. You'll find silence, and people who smile too much, and cameras that don't blink. Ava's voice barely came out. But do you think she's alive? The woman didn't answer, just looked Ava dead in the eyes and said, "They don't like when you get close. You're not supposed to be here. Neither of us are." She walked away before Ava could ask her name, but she left the photo behind. Ava stared at the manifest on her laptop screen, her hand frozen on the trackpad. It had taken a hacked login, 2 sketchy VPNs, and a deep dive into maritime compliance records buried beneath a maze of tourism companies and fake shell names. But she'd found it. Solera Voyages, Client File Archive, Tour Group Alpha 12B. The date, April 2015. The same cruise Elise disappeared from. There were 12 names on the guest list. Only 9 had digital checkouts. 3 names, highlighted in yellow, had no exit scans, no custom stamps, no return flights, no activity since. Ava's chest tightened. 1. Elise Sullivan. 2. Camila Ortega. 3. Nadine Clark. She recognized Nadine's name. She'd seen it once, buried deep in a Reddit thread from 2 years ago, flagged as a cold case curiosity. A 17-year-old who vanished from a cruise in 2010 while traveling with her stepfather. Ava's hands moved without thought now, flipping between tabs. She found Camila's last photo online, a blurry image taken on a ship deck at sunset, posted by a friend 2 weeks before she vanished. Camila's face was partially turned, mid-laugh. Behind her was a man in a straw hat, barely visible. Just the brim, a shoulder, and what looked like a leather band around his wrist. Ava exhaled sharply. 3 girls, all logged on the same tour agency system, same booking channel, the same travel coordinator. She clicked his name. N. Soriano. Her stomach dropped. She'd seen that name once before, buried in the XEF metadata of the leaked security footage. Uploaded by N. Soriano 1986. Not just a coordinator, an insider. Someone who had access to cruise logs and security feeds. Her hands were shaking now. Her cursor hovered over the Download Full Client Record button. A warning popped up. Access will be logged. She didn't care. She clicked. The screen flashed once, and then a progress bar appeared. 12%, 34%, 67%. As the data poured in, Ava realized this was no longer about Elise alone. It was bigger, and someone was orchestrating it. She moved through the trees like an animal, silent, barefoot, heart pulsing in her throat. The moon was high, bloated with light. Every leaf seemed to glow. She hadn't meant to run, not yet. Not until she had a plan. But something in her snapped tonight. A look, a word. The way Father placed his hand too long on Joy's shoulder at dinner. Something broke. And now she was here, sprinting through undergrowth, her breath loud in her ears. The docks. They were smaller than she remembered. 2 boats, one clearly gutted for parts, the other intact, covered in tarp, motor exposed. She dropped to her knees beside it, yanked at the covering. Ropes loosened. Her hands were shaking so badly she could barely untie the knot. She didn't know if it had gas. She didn't care. She'd drift if she had to. Better dead at sea than living in this island-shaped cage. A snap behind her, too loud to be a bird. She froze. Then, hope. The voice was calm. Too calm. She turned. Father stepped into view, silhouetted by the moon, a halo of white behind his head. His hands were clasped in front of him, like a priest. "You're not ready to leave yet." She stood slowly, fists clenched. "My name isn't Hope." A pause, then a smile. "Ah, there she is." He stepped forward. She backed up, 1 foot in the boat now, ready to lunge, to swing the oar beside her like a weapon. but two others appeared behind him, silent. The larger one had tranquilizer scars on his arms. The other held a taser. "Don't do this," Elise whispered. "Please." Father's voice didn't rise. "You don't run from healing, child. You're not cured yet, and you're far too valuable to lose." She ran anyway. 2 steps, maybe 3. Then the jolt. Her body seized mid-motion. The world blinked white, then black, then stone. She hit the dock hard, lips splitting on wood. Above her, his voice, soft as sea spray. "We don't go back until we forget who we were. You're not finished forgetting yet." The pain hadn't fully faded. It lingered behind Elise's left eye like a bad memory. She lay in the infirmary's cot, the thin sheet clinging to her sweat-damp skin. A single bulb swung above her head, creaking softly as it moved, left to right to left, like a pendulum counting down something she couldn't name. She couldn't move. Not yet. Her limbs felt stitched into the mattress. She floated somewhere between fever and paralysis, between now and then she heard it. A voice, software familiar, breaking through the dark. "Elise, if you can hear me, I'm coming. Just hold on." Her eyes shot open. The ceiling, still cracked, still peeling. No one in the room. She shut her eyes again. It returned. "They don't know I'm here yet? But I'm close. I saw your name. I saw the photo. I remember your laugh. Don't let them take that away." It wasn't Father. It wasn't the others. It wasn't even her own mind's cruel tricks. It was Ava, her sister's voice. She could hear it, not like memory, but like presence. Like Ava was standing beside her, whispering from some place just outside this world. Elise pressed her hand to her chest. The air burned in her lungs. Her heartbeat thudded in uneven rhythms. Her mouth worked, forming soundless shapes. Avenue. Her name, the real one, rippled through her like a tremor. "They made you forget. But you're stronger than that. You're not Hope. You never were. You're Elise Sullivan. And I'm not leaving without you." Elise opened her eyes again. Something had shifted. In her mind. In her bones. In the dark corners where memories had once been buried. A flicker of something else emerged. A hotel room. A birthday card. The smell of salt in her hair. Ava laughing behind a camera lens. The world tilted. And for the first time in a decade of silence, Elise whispered her own name aloud, broken and cracked, but hers. Ava. The wind had changed. Ava stood barefoot at the shoreline, ankle deep in warm tidewater, eyes fixed on the distant bend in the cove where the jungle broke open just enough to reveal the inlet from the photo. The same twisted palms, the same jagged rock arch like a mouth opening into the unknown. She had found it. The storm was coming. Clouds rolled like smoke along the horizon, the air electric with pressure. Locals were shuttering windows, tying up boats. Everyone warned her to stay put, except for one man. He didn't speak English, not really, but he understood what she wanted, what she needed. She handed him the money, half now, half when she returned, if she returned, and pointed at the map. He nodded once. No smile, no question. Just took her bag and loaded it into the skiff like it was already a body. The ride was fast, violent. The small boat bucked over white-capped waves as rain began to spit from above. Ava held on, her fingers blistering from rope and salt. Her heart slammed in her chest, not from fear of capsizing but something deeper, anticipation, dread, hope sharpened into a blade. The inlet came into view. Closer now, she could make out more details. A rusted chain along the rocks, possibly once part of a dock. Moss-covered steps leading up the cliff, and halfway hidden by hanging vines. A faint trail, man-made. The boat stopped just shy of the rocks. "No further," the man said, his eyes refusing to meet hers. Ava nodded. She jumped, landing hard on wet stone, nearly slipping. The boat spun back into the waves without waiting. She was alone now. Rain fell harder, drenching her within seconds. But she didn't stop. She climbed the stone steps, palms scraping against ancient coral. Thunder cracked overhead. Every instinct screamed at her to turn back. But then she saw it, at the top of the trail, a camera, mounted, new, watching. She ducked instinctively, heart crashing against her ribs. They were still here. And Elise might be too. The silence was unnatural. Ava crept through the underbrush, soaked to the skin, her boots squelching softly in the moss-covered trail that wound deeper into the jungle. The canopy swallowed most of the storm's rage now. Only muted cracks of thunder echoed above like distant artillery. The wind moaned low, carrying salt, mildew, and something else. Smoke. She ducked beneath a fallen limb and froze. Ahead, a clearing. She could see remnants of buildings, weather-worn cabins clustered like forgotten bones, corrugated metal roofs, hammocks swaying, empty. A deflated volleyball lay sunken in mud, abandoned but not ruined. Lived in, recently. Ava stepped closer, heart thudding against her ribs. There were footprints, fresh ones, deep, large. She raised her camera slowly, clicked once. The shutter seemed deafening in the hush. A whisper of movement in the trees. She spun. Nothing. Then a figure. Distant. Half hidden. Watching. Not approaching. Just observing from the edge of the jungle. Head tilted. Face shadowed by the leaves. Ava raised a hand. "Hello?" she called, cautious. "I'm not here to hurt anyone. I'm looking for my sister." No reply. The figure didn't flinch, didn't move. Just stood there, unblinking. Something about it, her, Ava realized, seemed eerily familiar. The building, the hair, the stillness. "Elise?" Ava whispered. She took one step forward. The figure stepped back, dissolved into the trees like mist. Gone. Ava ran to where she had been. Leaves rustled. The brush was disturbed, but the woman was nowhere. Had it really been her? Or a ghost Ava wanted so badly to see, her mind conjured one. Then she saw it. A charm bracelet, hanging from a nail hammered into a tree, left deliberately, delicately, like a sign. She plucked it down with trembling fingers. A silver, her knees buckled. This was real. Elise had been here. Maybe still was. But someone else was too. Because behind her, deep in the brush, a second set of eyes blinked, and someone whispered into a two-way radio. "She's made it to the compound." The shack looked like it had been swallowed and spit back out by the jungle. Its roof sagged under vines and thyme, and the door hung askew, one rusted hinge groaning in protest as Ava pushed it open. The smell hit her instantly. Damp rot, rusted metal, and something sweet, spoiled. Inside, a thin shaft of gray light pierced through a crack in the roof, illuminating a narrow cot, a shelf of decayed books, and a battered suitcase left open on the floor. Ava stepped inside cautiously, scanning every corner. Nothing moved, nothing breathed. Then she saw it. A small spiral-bound notebook, its pages yellowed and warped from humidity, resting atop the suitcase like a forgotten offering. She picked it up gently. The first page was blank. So was the second. Then, scribbles. Chaotic at first. Jagged lines, half-erased symbols, circles drawn again and again until they tore through the paper. But by page 5, the madness turned structured. Words appeared. Day 34, he says I'm progressing. But my name feels wrong in my mouth. Day 52, Ava. Avenue, 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 Ava. Day 71, I buried it near the eastern fence. If someone ever finds this, dig there. Ava's breath caught. She flipped faster. Fragmented thoughts, scrawled poetry. even codes, sequences of numbers, reverse letters, arrows pointing in opposing directions. She recognized her sister's handwriting, but it had evolved, become smaller, tighter, like she was afraid the words themselves would scream too loud. On the final page, barely legible, she found, "He watches us even when he isn't here. The walls blink, the mirrors whisper." But I remember her. Ava with the scar on her lip. Ava who hated boats. Ava who never stopped looking. Ava's throat tightened. This wasn't just a notebook. It was a map, a confession, a crack in the prison Elise had been forced to live in. Ava closed it slowly, held it to her chest, and whispered, "I'm here, Lisa. I found you." From outside, a twig snapped, and a voice she didn't recognize said softly, "You weren't supposed to see that." Ava ran. Branches whipped across her face, slicing into her skin like sharp reminders of how far she'd come and how close she was to losing it all. Behind her, the voice echoed again, more forceful this time. "Drop the notebook." She didn't. Couldn't. Elise's words burned in her hands like fire. Ava knew if she lost this, she might never find her again. Then, movement. To her left, in the tangle of vines and shadows, a figure bolted in the opposite direction, smaller, faster. Ava skidded to a stop. Her pulse froze. The girl, not a hallucination, not a trick. "Elise!" she screamed. The girl stopped mid-stride, her back still turned, shoulders hunched, like she was waiting for something to strike her. "Elise, it's me." Slowly, the figure turned. The face was thinner, paler, but the eyes, those wide storm-silver eyes, were unmistakable. "Ava?" the girl whispered. Her voice cracked like something unused for years. Ava stepped forward, heart cracking open. "You remember me." Elise took one shaky step back. "You're not real. He said you were gone. You never came." "I'm here now," Ava said. "I found your notebook. I found your name again. Elise, not Hope." Elise's hands clenched. "Don't say that name." Ava nodded. "Then don't live it." For a moment, neither of them moved. The jungle fell silent, even the rain slowing to a whisper. Then Elise whispered, "You should go. If they see you, if they think you broke through, he'll hurt you too. Just like—" "He won't touch me," Ava said, "because I'm not leaving here without you." Elise's breath caught. Her chin quivered. She looked like she wanted to believe, but couldn't quite remember how. Behind them, twigs snapped. Voices. Flashlights cutting through the trees. Ava grabbed her sister's wrist. "Come with me." Elise hesitated, then nodded. And for the first time in 10 years, the sisters ran together, through the dark, through the branches, towards something that felt like freedom. They crouched beneath a canopy of tangled roots, hearts thundering like war drums. The jungle had swallowed them whole. Above, voices still echoed, searching, calling, barking orders through static-choked radios. Elise's hands trembled in Ava's grip. "You need to breathe," Ava whispered. "In through the nose, out through the mouth. Remember? You used to do that before swim meets." Elise's head jerked slightly. Something flickered behind her eyes. Pain, confusion. She shook her head. I don't remember swim meets." "You had a green towel," Ava said softly. "You used to wrap it around your shoulders like a cape. Said it made you swim faster." Elise blinked. Then, "Are you sure you're not part of it?" "What?" "This—" She motioned around them, frantic. "This whole thing. They say people come sometimes, pretend to be family, say the right things, test how much we've unraveled." Ava's stomach turned. "I'm your sister, Elise, Ava Sullivan." "I brought your bracelet," she said, pulling the silver charm from her pocket. "You wore it every day until the night you—" She stopped, vanished. Elise reached for it hesitantly. Her fingers touched the worn metal, then recoiled like it burned her. "I don't remember you," she whispered. "But something in me does." She clutched her chest, like something deep inside her ribs had begun to shake loose. "When you said my name, Elise, it felt like someone striking a match inside my skull." Ava leaned in. "That's your memory coming back. That's your real self fighting through." But Elise was already pulling away, backing into shadow. No, it's dangerous. I'm not supposed to feel, not supposed to remember." "Why not?" "Because the memories belong to someone who disappeared. Someone who died. If I remember her, I lose who I became." "You didn't become anything," Ava said, her voice breaking. "They replaced you." Silence. Only rain and breath, and the weight of everything lost. Finally, Elise looked at her, not like a stranger, but like a mirror trying to remember its reflection. And for the first time, she didn't run. Elise dropped to her knees. The trees around her dissolved into shadow, her breath catching as a floodgate cracked open behind her eyes. Ava was saying something, soft, urgent, but her voice faded beneath the rising roar in Elise's mind. A room, white walls, no windows, a humming noise that never stopped, like an engine idling behind her thoughts. She saw herself at 15, strapped to a chair, hands bound with soft fabric, not to hurt, but to make it feel gentle, safe. It wasn't. A man stood in the corner, smiling. Not father, the other one, the doctor. He had a clipboard, a voice like sugar. "Let's try again, Hope. What's your name?" She didn't answer. A high-pitched sound screeched through the walls. Pain bloomed behind her eyes. She screamed. Wrong answer. It went on for weeks or months. Time had no shape there. They took her name, syllable by syllable, her memories, piece by piece, until Elise became a noise that gave her migraines, until Hope didn't feel foreign anymore. The walls blinked, cameras disguised as decorative panels. She learned to smile when they asked, to say, "Yes, I feel safe," when she felt like a shell. She remembered the scent of the drug, citrusy, faintly sweet. It came in tea, in perfume, on pillows. It made her forget hours at a time, then days. They showed her images, girls laughing, holding hands, calling each other sisters. "This is your family now," they said. "These are your truths. The others were dreams." She began to believe it. Until now. Ava's voice returned like light under a closed door. "Elise, come back, please." Elise looked up, eyes glassy with grief. "They erased me," she whispered, over and over, until I smiled for it. Ava knelt beside her, shaking. "They didn't erase you. They buried you, and you're digging your way out." Elise clutched her head. Behind her ribs, her real name pulsed like a heartbeat. And in the back of her mind, a single word rose from the wreckage: Haven Shore. Ava froze. "What did you just say?" "That's what they called it," Elise murmured. "The program. The place where they turn you into someone you're not." Ava shoved aside the warped floorboards, revealing the tunnel Elise had sketched years ago in her notebook. Just rough lines and a memory scraped together from sedation. But it was real. Dark, narrow, humid as a fever dream. They crouched at the threshold, the dim light from above slashing across Elise's pale face. She was shaking, but her eyes had hardened into something Ava hadn't seen in years: resolve. "This leads to the old utility corridor," Elise whispered. "It connects to the cliffside path near the boat cove. If it hasn't caved in," Ava nodded. "Then we find out." Behind them, a voice boomed through a speaker hidden somewhere in the rafters. "Hope, come home now. You've been led astray." Elise froze. His voice. Not angry, not afraid. Just calm. Possessive. like a father chiding a child for wandering too far from the backyard. "You're sick, remember? She makes you sick. You know what happens when you don't follow the treatment." Ava grabbed Elise's wrist. "Don't listen. It's conditioning. That's not your voice in your head. It's his." From outside, heavy footsteps approached, measured, unhurried. The others were searching, closing in. They dropped into the tunnel. The wood sealed above them, and they were swallowed by darkness. Ava flicked on her phone flashlight. The beam revealed dirt walls pressed close on either side, glistening with moisture. Cobwebs clung to the ceiling. They crawled, elbows grinding into gravel, hearts pounding loud enough to feel in their teeth. "He won't let me go," Elise said softly. "Not after this." "Then we don't give him the choice." Behind them, a distant clatter. The trapdoor creaked open again. He had found the tunnel entrance. "Elise," a voice called. Not amplified now, closer, breathing. "Don't let her take you. You're mine. You belong here." "No," she whispered. "I never did." They reached the end of the tunnel where rock opened into moonlight, cloud-filtered, cold. Waves crashed below. Far down the cliffside, a single boat waited. Ava turned to her. "Ready?" Elise nodded. And they ran, toward the edge, toward the sea, toward freedom they hadn't dared believe still existed. The skiff bobbed gently at the waterline, tethered loosely to a jagged outcrop where the cliff dipped into a natural ledge. Waves slapped the hull. The engine idled, faint and rhythmic. He was waiting. The fisherman. The same quiet man who had brought Ava in through the storm. Same weathered face, same salt-stained cap pulled low over his brow. He didn't speak as they emerged from the jungle, panting, bleeding, wild with adrenaline. Just held out his hand and gestured for them to climb in. Ava hesitated. "Elise first," she said. Elise obeyed, sliding into the narrow boat, her eyes never leaving the tree line behind them. Ava climbed in after her, heart thundering. She clutched Elise's arm, fingers slick with sweat and rain. "We made it," Ava whispered. "We actually—" Click. The cold snout of a pistol pressed to the back of Ava's neck. She froze. "Get out," the fisherman said quietly. "You weren't supposed to find her." Elise flinched, her breath catching. "No, no. You said we were safe. You said—" "You're not," he said. "You never were." Ava turned slowly, her voice trembling. "You're part of it." He nodded once. No remorse, no explanation, just routine. "They pay well," he said, "and they keep quiet. You're not the first sister who's come looking." Ava felt like her heart had dropped straight through her chest. Her thoughts raced, but her eyes were locked on Elise, who looked more shattered than she had in the cell. Not because of the gun, but because hope had turned on them again. "I'll scream," Ava said. "I'll make sure every villager on this island knows." He smiled, tired. "They already know. They've always known." Suddenly, Elise moved, fast, desperate. She lunged toward the side of the boat, grabbed the flare gun stashed beneath the bench. She fired. The sky split in red. Ava shoved the fisherman sideways and the boat rocked violently. He fired, but missed. Then Ava and Elise jumped into the cold black sea. Darkness swallowed them whole, but above, that red flare burned like proof. Someone had escaped, and someone would talk. They emerged from the water gasping, crawling onto the rocky inlet like newborn creatures. Elise collapsed first, coughing seawater, her arms shaking from cold and shock. Ava dragged herself beside her, her lungs burning. Behind them, the fisherman's boat circled in the dark, a distant growl on the tide. They didn't have long. Ava looked up and saw the compound lights flickering in the tree line above. Hazy shadows moved between the huts. She could hear shouting, radio chatter, barked orders. "They know we're alive," she whispered. Elise sat up, shivering. Then we give them something else to chase. They climbed fast, cutting back through the slope and brush, moving by instinct now. Elise was limping. Her foot had been sliced on coral, but she didn't stop. Her expression had changed. Not fear, not panic. Determination. Back inside the compound, it felt like a ghost town in chaos. Abandoned clothing, papers scattered, drawers open. They must have evacuated the inner cabin searching for the girls. That was the mistake. Ava grabbed the lighter from a drawer. If we burn it, records, the meds, the uniforms, we don't just escape, we expose it. Elise nodded. Start with the lab. I'll draw them to the rec hall. No, we stay together. But Elise was already gone. Ava barely had time to light the edge of the supply tent before the first fireball whooshed to life. She tossed a second flame onto the dry canvas flap of the main cabin. Within seconds, the fire roared. In the distance, an alarm blared. Gunshots cracked into the night air, and then screaming. Ava spun toward the sound, heart lurching. Elise had stepped into the open, hands raised, visible in the floodlights. She was bait. No, Ava cried. Get back. But Elise didn't flinch. They want me, she whispered. Not you. She stood at the center of it all as the flames rose behind her, casting her in silhouette like a myth come to life. A soldier raised his gun. Ava screamed. But in the split second before he fired, a voice barked from the shadows. Stand down. We have press. We have eyes. The flames curled into the sky like fingers clawing at heaven. Smoke billowed into the stars, blacking out the tree line, turning the island into a war zone. Ava pulled Elise behind the stone water tanks near the compound's edge. Sirens wailed, voices shouted, and yet it all felt far away. Then, through the smoke, a low, thudding sound. A rhythmic chop slicing through the sky. A helicopter. Elise's eyes widened. That's not theirs. Ava followed her gaze. Beyond the cliff line, out past the burned rec hall, a dark military-grade chopper appeared, its spotlight slicing across the wreckage like a searchlight from some forgotten war. Below it, on the water, a black boat approached the cove. Fast, controlled, armed. Ava's stomach twisted. Is that? Before she could finish, uniformed men disembarked, moving with surgical precision. Their gear was marked not with logos, but plain navy and gray, sterile, official. One of them raised a megaphone. Ava Sullivan, Elise Sullivan, you are to identify yourselves immediately, hands visible. Approach slowly. Elise froze. Her lips parted like she wanted to scream. That voice, she whispered. That's him. That's the man who ran the evaluations, the one who chose who advanced. Ava looked harder. The man in charge wasn't masked. He wore a comms headset and thin glasses, clinical, familiar, not rescue, oversight. It's not a rescue mission, Ava said slowly. It's containment. The burning compound, the noise, the flare, they hadn't just drawn attention. They'd triggered protocol. They'd sent a ripple up the food chain. Elise turned to her. What do we do? Ava felt the weight of everything crash onto her shoulders, the photo, the years, the silence. She looked at her sister. We don't run anymore. They stepped out together, hands raised, clothes soaked, skin ash-smeared, but defiant. Ava raised her voice above the wind. We're the girls you lost, and now the world's going to hear everything. The soldiers paused. Confusion rippled. Too late. From behind the ridge, another boat arrived, this one civilian. With a journalist Ava had emailed weeks ago. Camera raised, live streaming, and broadcasting the truth. They landed at dawn. No cameras, no lights, just silence. The kind that comes after the storm, where the birds don't sing yet, and the air tastes like ash. Ava held Elise's hand as they stepped through the airport doors into the world that hadn't waited for them. Elise wore sunglasses even though the sky was gray. She hadn't spoken since the helicopter ride. The officials asked questions. The media spun headlines. The subreddit exploded. But none of that mattered. What mattered was the way Elise hesitated on the porch of their childhood home, staring at the chipped welcome mat like it was a foreign object. Ava unlocked the door. The hinges creaked just the same. Inside, everything was as they'd left it. Except them. Elise drifted through the rooms like a ghost. She touched walls, breathed in curtains, stood in front of the mirror in the hallway for what felt like hours. Ava watched from the doorway. Elise lifted her shirt slowly, revealing thin scars across her ribs. Words had been burned into her once. Hope was barely visible now, just a ghost of a ghost. Her fingers traced each line like braille. "I don't know who this body belongs to," she whispered. Ava stepped forward. "It's yours, and we'll teach it to remember." That night, Elise didn't sleep. She walked the halls barefoot, pressing her hands into the wallpaper like it might pull memories back from the void. Ava found her at 3 a.m., sitting in the bathtub fully clothed. "You can't fix me," Elise said, not looking up. "I'm not here to fix you," Ava said gently. "I'm here to stay." There were still questions, still hearings, still people who wanted silence instead of justice. But the photo that started it all, that cursed, miraculous photo, hung framed on Ava's wall now, not as a trophy, but as a reminder. That truth doesn't always save you. Sometimes it just gives you a place to begin. Elise looked into the mirror again the next morning. This time, she didn't flinch. Ava stepped beside her, and for the first time in 10 years, they stood in their own reflection, together. October 3rd. I don't know if this is really my name, but it's the only one that doesn't make my skin itch, so I'll keep it. For now. They say writing things down helps reclaim memory. I'm not sure that's what I want, because memory is jagged. Memory cuts. I don't remember the ship. Not really. Not the fall. Not the splash. Not the hands that pulled me under. But I dream of metal decks in the moonlight. I dream of laughter. Girls in white, dancing barefoot near the railing, pretending they were flying. Sometimes they call me Hope. Sometimes they call me Sister. I wake up choking on salt water. The doctors say it'll take time. The internet calls me a miracle. Reddit has theories. Podcasts want interviews. But no one asks what it's like to look in the mirror and see someone else's eyes blinking back. There are flashes. The girl who screamed inside my head when they dressed me in a name. The face of a woman who said she was my sister. The way her voice cracked when I didn't recognize her. She still sleeps in the next room. She makes tea that smells like childhood. She never closes her door. Sometimes I feel fragments, salt on my skin, hands brushing mine in the dark, a song someone used to hum before the injection started. I think we were real, the girls on that island. I think we were made into ghosts. And now, one by one, we're haunting our way back. They can burn the buildings, erase the records, rebrand the names, but they can't delete what's written in bone. I may never remember all of who I was, but I remember this. I am not what they turned me into, and whatever they tried to bury is still breathing. Some nights I stand at the edge of the dock near our house. I close my eyes and feel the sea pulling like a heartbeat. I think it's calling the others home. If they're out there, I'll wait. Elise. The sky was clear the night it came back to her. Not in a dream, not in a nightmare. Just a flicker. A whisper that didn't sound like her own voice. Elise sat on the back porch, knees hugged to her chest, eyes tracing the same stars that had once blinked through the cracks in a cell's ceiling. Her journal lay open beside her, but the pen had stopped moving. Inside, Ava slept with the hallway light on, as always. Elise didn't turn when she said it, didn't even realize she'd spoken aloud. Mira. The name dropped into the air like a stone into deep water. Ava stirred in the doorway, rubbing her eyes. "What did you say?" Elise's eyes didn't move from the horizon. "She was the last one. She was kept apart from us. Special. They said she was too unstable to integrate." Ava stepped outside, the wooden planks creaking beneath her. She crouched beside Elise gently. "You're sure?" "I wasn't until now. But her name, Mira, it just came back. I heard it whispered through the vent at night. She used to sing when she thought no one was listening." Elise turned slowly, her voice hollow with knowing. "We never saw her leave." The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was dense, heavy, with something unfinished. Ava's jaw tightened, her hands curled into fists. Then she's still there. The porch light flickered. Ava stood. Her eyes, once tired, once grieving, had sharpened again, narrowed by fire and memory. The same look she wore the day she found Elise's face buried in that photograph. The same look she had when the world told her to let go, and she didn't. Then we go back. Elise looked up, startled. "What? No. Ava, they'll never let us. We're not asking." Ava walked inside and flipped on the laptop. The screen glowed like a new dawn. She opened a folder marked Documents for Press, another marked Maps, another Unreleased Footage. Behind her, Elise whispered, "She might not be alive." Ava paused, then said, without turning, "Then we bring her home either way." The screen faded to black. A cursor blinked. A storm began to gather.